All right, good evening. My name's Bob Connors. It's 7 p.m. I'd like to call the December 6th meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission to order. Sam, can you read the remote open meeting law preamble and take a roll call vote of the members present?
Yes. All right. As a preliminary matter, my name is Samantha Holt, Town Staff Conservation Agent for the Newbury Conservation Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Conservation Commission members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bob Connors.
Present.
Brad Duffin is not here. Dan Streeter.
Yes.
Diane O'Brien.
Yes.
Mary Rimmer.
Yes.
Peter Pecos.
Yes.
And TJ Conti.
Yes.
All right, good evening. This December 6th, 2022 open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which extends the governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2023. This order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and or telephone conference, and the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Meeting materials were provided to the Conservation Commission members prior to the meeting for review and were posted to the Conservation Commission webpage for public access. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct for our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Proponents will be given 10 minutes to present. More time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. After they conclude their remarks, we will go down the list of commission members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, for all attendees except commission members and staff, please remember to mute your computer using the mute button or your phone using *6 to toggle mute and unmute when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer unless you have been allowed to do so. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any response, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If commission members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself when you wish to speak. There will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during public hearings. After commission members have spoken, we will afford the public an opportunity to comment and or ask questions as follows. I will see questions and comments at the appropriate time through the Zoom raise hand function. For video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the yellow hand that appears. If you don't see a yellow hand, click on the participants button. A list of participants will open and display on the right. At the bottom of this participant area, you will see an option to click on a raised hand button. Please ensure your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You may rename yourself by using the More function next to your name. For telephone participants, to raise your hand in a Zoom meeting, hit *9 on your phone's keypad. We will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they appear listed on my screen, based on when the function was selected. Each participant will be called upon to provide his or her name and address or affiliation, and will be afforded 3 minutes to make comments. More time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. The proponent or commission members will have an opportunity to reply as needed. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. We will then continue down the list of those in the raised hand column and again afford time for responses as needed. All participants are reminded that only matters which fall into the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission may be discussed. The chat feature has been disabled for this meeting, and everyone is expected to conduct themselves in the same manner they would in an in-person meeting. Any disruptions will be addressed once by the chair and should be acknowledged by the disruptor. Any further disruptions will result in complete removal from the meeting with no readmittance. Vulgar or obscene actions or comments will result in immediate removal from the meeting with no readmittance. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
Okay, thank you, Sam. All right, upcoming meeting dates: January 3rd, 2023, February 7th, 2023, and February 21st, 2023.
I think maybe now would be a good time to talk about the December 20th meeting.
Great idea, Sam. Why don't you give us let us know what's happening there? I guess it's we get one of those situations, team.
So at our last regular meeting a couple weeks ago, we discussed canceling the December 20th meeting because it's the week of Christmas. At the moment, I have no new applications for that meeting since it was canceled. However, I did receive a question from a homeowner who is looking to sell his house and needs to get a permit to replace his septic system. I have seen the application. Unfortunately, where it's located, they have several other agencies that they have to go through other than DEP. They are going to have to go through Natural Heritage, and they have not yet submitted a package to Natural Heritage. I believe they are working on that this week. Unfortunately, the chances of getting any comments back from Natural Heritage before the 20th are probably pretty slim at this point if they haven't gotten it in by today. And we also have to kind of worry about the fact that DEP comments might not come back in time. File number might not come back in time. So we probably wouldn't be able to take final action on that project anyways. Part of the other issue with that is that we would kind of be making a special exception for someone and putting a meeting back on an agenda or putting a meeting back on the schedule that was canceled specifically for one particular applicant. And at the moment, we've had several projects that have been continued or requested to be continued to January 3rd because we're not having a meeting on the 20th. I did talk to both the attorney for this particular applicant and the engineer that's working on the submittal, and both of them have kind of resigned to the fact that this is probably not going to happen and that we're probably not even going to be able to take final action until January. So with the exception of the homeowner, the current homeowner at least, it sounds like everybody would be okay with not having the meeting on the 20th, but we wanted to bring that to you guys to make a final decision on that.
Sam, thank you. What's the address? I know it's Cottage Road. What
Yeah,
number?
71 Cottage Road.
71 Cottage Road. So I've heard about this dilemma. We have a couple of seniors, both in their 80s. One's the seller, one's the buyer. And my understanding is that they have their septic design going in before the Board of Health tonight.
Actually, I talked to the engineer today. It's going in next week.
Okay, so it's not going in today. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And so obviously, I guess it's to assist some of our elderly residents. What I'm going to suggest is, let's see where this lands, and if we have an appetite, we just need 48 hours to schedule a meeting. I think, Sam, you're 100% right, but I think it's kind of an extraordinary measures where people that are not necessarily familiar with this, and it's a replacement septic system, that we can at least consider it. But why don't I stop there? And Pete, what are your thoughts?
I don't have any problem. I just hope that we can get a DEP number.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if we're not ready for final action, Pete, then it makes no sense to schedule a meeting if they get everything in order. But Mary, how about yourself?
I just would make a note that the legal notice requires 5 business days. So it depends on when the legal notice goes in, if whether we can hold a hearing or not. So.
Okay. I guess I'm polling to get a sense. Do we want to try to make an exception on this on the 20th if they can get their ducks in a row?
Yep, I have no problem with that.
Okay. Dan, how about yourself?
No problem with that, but it does seem like a long shot.
Yeah. TJ, what do you think?
I have no problem. I will not be here on the 3rd. I will be here on the 20th. So whatever comes up on the 20th, I'm around.
Okay. And Diane, what's your availability? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm going to be around. Sam, like, what's the emergency? Did they not know they were selling the house, or?
Well,
I think it's inexperience and
yeah, they just came in a little late. They've known about it for a few months that this needed to happen, but I think they just didn't know what the whole process was. The attorney especially was very surprised when I explained to her the whole situation yesterday. I do have one question though. So if we were to say, yes, we'll hold this meeting, and then get the legal ad and everything out. I could certainly get the legal ad request out tomorrow. The deadline to get it out would have to be tomorrow, and I have everything I need to do that. I guess the real question would be, A, whether the applicant's representatives are ready to submit to Natural Heritage and when. When I spoke to the engineer today, he was not ready for that yet. They were still getting the package together. But if we did post the meeting and do the legal ad, we have had situations where we've had new applications on an agenda and then had to cancel or postpone the meeting.
Well, could we just continue the meeting if they're not ready?
Right. So we wouldn't even necessarily have to hold the meeting, if the applicant agrees and says, yep, we're not ready, we see that, we can cancel the meeting on Tuesday, on the 20th.
So Sam, what I would suggest is this. I'd let the resident know that we'll entertain scheduling a meeting on the 20th if they're ready to go. If they miss the window, then they should be able to get in on the January 3rd. I think the real driver here is there's money's being taken out of a retirement account for the closing. And if the closing doesn't happen within a certain period of time, they either have to put the money back in the account or pay a penalty for not putting it in another account. I happen to, a real estate broker that is involved in this somehow had mentioned this to me, but so if that sounds like a plan, team, why don't we just do that? Mary, go ahead.
Just a quick comment, Sam, that they're exempt from MISA as a repair of a septic system.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Okay.
They may still have to file it under the Wetland Protection Act provisions, but the MISA, the Endangered Species Act, they're exempt.
Okay, yeah, I think it must be through, I can check.
Double check whether they even have to file it with them, yeah.
Yeah, because Steve Sawyer is the engineer, and he's actually working with Tom Hughes to do the package. And Tom did mention something to him about that there's a little bit of leeway with septic repairs.
Yeah.
When
There's
it
a
comes to
specific
Natural Heritage,
exemption.
so
Yeah.
I can give Tom a call tomorrow too and just
Okay.
double check on that.
Just so they don't have to hold up things for that.
Okay,
All right, so Sam, why don't you do that, and then you can send out an email if there's a chance. And we won't post the meeting obviously until the Thursday before the 20th.
yeah.
All right. Well, it's beyond 7:10. Why don't we move on to our first continued hearing?
Do we want to do minutes first?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why don't we do that? Okay. Approval of minutes for November 15th. Any comments, concerns, or corrections to the draft minutes as presented?
I just had one. Sam, would you mind just mentioning that I had abstained from the trustees
Yes.
hearing? Thanks.
Okay. Subject to Mary's amendment, hearing no other questions from the members, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
A
Second.
Okay, a roll call vote. All in favor, say aye. Mary,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
TJ,
Yes,
Diane,
Yes,
and the chair votes yes. All right. Okay, continue public hearings. 333rd Street. The work to install a driveway to provide on-site parking with associated site work, including work within 33rd Street right-of-way. Sam, can you give us a recap? Is this being continued?
It is, yes. I got an email from Tom this afternoon. They did request a continuance to January 3rd.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion to continue the public hearing on 333rd Street to
So
January
moved.
3rd? A second.
second,
All those in favor say aye. Roll call vote. Mary,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dan,
yes,
TJ. TJ? Diane? Diane?
I
and-
I voted yes already.
Okay.
Can I
well,
vote for TJ? TJ,
Aye,
Here we go.
aye.
We have a lack of cell towers out here on the island too, so.
Can you not hear me?
Yeah, we can, TJ. All right, next order of business. For 80 Northern Boulevard. Sam, what's happening with 80 Northern Boulevard?
They are still in the ZBA process right now, so they have they have requested a continuance for January 3rd as well,
Okay.
or to January 3rd.
Do we have a motion to continue 80 Northern Boulevard to January 3rd?
So moved.
A second.
second,
Okay, roll call vote. Mary,
Yes,
TJ,
You're
Pete?
muted.
Yes,
okay. Pete,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Diane,
yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right. Geez, my papers are out of order here. This is going to be unnerving for me. All right. Okay, continued public hearing for 92 Northern Boulevard for work to expand the existing deck. Sam, can you give us the status on this one?
Yes, so at the last hearing, we were looking for, or we were still waiting on the natural heritage letter. We did get that shortly after. The conditions for that were similar to the 26 Northern project, basically just a time of year restriction, shorebird monitors and stuff like that, species protection. So we have all of that, and I've added that into the draft of the special conditions. We also received a PowerPoint from the applicant with some additional information. Can you guys see that?
Mhm.
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So this just has some information about the height of the deck, the expansion, where the mitigation plantings are going to go, and the footings, the diamond piers for the deck footings. And I can go back through that at some point if anybody wants to see it. But we did get a whole bunch of additional information. The comments from DEP were mostly to do with like the dune performance standards, which I think all of that can be covered in the hearing to get that discussion done. So they just said that no information was submitted to show that the project meets the performance standards at 1028.3. Deck is proposed on primary frontal dune, which is per se significant to storm damage prevention and flood control. Work appears to adversely impact critical characteristics listed in 1028.1 A through E. Project must not be approved until Natural Heritage has issued their letter on whether the project will have an adverse impact on habitat for rare species, which we have received. And that is everything new that we have for that one. And we do have the applicant and his representative.
Okay, well, why don't we open this up to questions for the members? Mary, any questions for you on this one?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, Pete, how about yourself?
No questions.
Dan, question.
I couldn't really see the materials very well there, but there may be a question about the viability of the replanting area, whether that's actually available and unoccupied by vegetation currently.
Hey,
I can-
quick- Sam, you've been out to this site, haven't you, Sam?
I have, yes.
Okay. Do you want to take a shot at answering Dan's question? Dan, are you concerned that it's gonna be a shady area and it may not take, or
It's,
not enough
you know,
square
we
footage to?
having seen some of these before, it's just sometimes the replanting area is already vegetated, and that, you kind of have to find an equivalent area to what's being covered, and presumably the vegetation, you know, eradicated. So,
We're looking at a frontal picture, looking at the deck back towards the street, Dan. And on the left-hand side, it's showing 56 square feet. And that looks pretty barren. That looks like that would certainly be a pretty viable area. On the right-hand side, I really can't tell, but
Yeah, and Matt Firm is the homeowner. He might be able to answer that a little bit better. From what I remember, this area over here on the left is pretty open, and I think this is it's vegetated, but it's kind of
Sparsely
sparse vegetation.
Sparsely, yeah.
Yeah.
This is Matt
So-
Firm, so thank you. That is exactly correct. It's in general, my entire lot is well vegetated, but these are the areas that either aren't, or, as was mentioned, very sparsely vegetated. It'll be work to fit everything in, but based on what I saw, I still do have some more space on the 133 square foot side, but it gets a little more vegetated as you go to the front of the house. So I was trying to do my best to pick whatever spots I had available. But it's not like there's a big open space that I can just use.
okay, Matt. Dan, any further questions? Does that address your
well,
question?
sort of. I think it's still a question, and let's have other members.
Okay. All right, Dan, if you want, I'll circle back with you before we
Yep.
we get too far along. All right, thank you, Dan. TJ, any questions on this project?
No questions.
Okay, Diane, any questions on this project?
I mean, the deck already exists there. If you look, is there any shot, and I did look at this, I don't recall it, going from the home out to the ocean?
Does it?
Is there a
Oh,
picture of that or no?
yes. If you look at let's see, if you go back a little bit, not, yeah, you get a little bit of a view. I could, let's see.
I just don't know how far. No, I mean, I was just looking to see if Dan was concerned about the vegetation on the sides. I didn't know if it would be possible to put it in that area, but it looks like it's pretty thick.
Yeah,
It's pretty
this is
dense.
all, yeah, it's all pretty densely vegetated all the way down to like the high tide line, pretty much.
Okay.
So, Matt, you're thinking that the north side of your property is where you're going to put a majority of the vegetation?
Yes, I have to leave a little path on the south side. I'll go as far in as I can, because that's honestly, it's the easier place to transplant.
Right.
But the north side, I do end up with more room.
Okay. Dan, I'm going to circle back to you. Do you have any other further questions or concerns?
I mean, it's just, I think this is an example of just when you have a well-vegetated lot, it's sort of unfair because there's no place to replant, or it's difficult to find places to replant. Unfortunate. I guess it's fine. I do wonder if you go well out onto the edge of the primary dune, the toe of the dune there, there is some sort of secondary vegetation going down towards the beach, I think. I don't know if there's some better place out there. Probably not, but
I didn't see it, but I'm willing to investigate again. If anything, they're all little small patches, and I have no problem filling in any of the small patches as you go out to the beach. That's it doesn't make a difference to me,
Yeah.
it's just trying to not, it's easier, honestly, it's easier to show these to you. When you think about the small patches in the other direction, they're very difficult to see in a photograph.
So
All right, well, I'm done with questions. Thank you.
okay, so it seems that we have 189 square feet of replanting. And I think that's the goal. And I mean, you've drawn where it is, but as you can see outside your defined areas, there's certainly some areas there to be able to
Yeah.
hit that number of 189 square feet, Matt. I think that's the.
Right.
that's
And
the-
and yeah, it's actually I'm sorry to correct you, but it's 177 because in the area being used, part of it is not, does not have any beach grass today.
Oh, okay,
Okay, so
okay.
yes, I did try to calculate this the best I could.
Mary
Okay.
does have her hand up, Bob, just so you
Yeah,
know.
Mary, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple of points that I wanted to make. Well, because these kind of projects are coming up over and over again. And one is just for the homeowner, obviously, you're going 12 feet closer to the water in a primary frontal dune, and that beach grass is your friend. So you're losing some of your storm protection by doing this, which I'm sure you're aware. But I think we need to just be cognizant of that we're, and also projects like this, I think, unfortunately, tend to encourage either the pre-destruction of vegetation or alterations that shouldn't be happening anyway as mitigation for new construction. So it might be something for the commission to consider, not necessarily for this project, but future projects, to look at other sites that might, on the island, that might provide more meaningful mitigation and restoration for these kind of projects, because this isn't very meaningful in terms of mitigation for their project impacts. And it's such a judgment call in terms of how much you're providing. Personally, I think if you're going to be impacting dune, we should have more than a 1-to-1 mitigation ratio. It's not been the practice of the commission because of these lots are so small and it's difficult to find these areas. But if we did have a sort of mitigation bank area that we could use as, to expand badly needed restoration of some dunes, that would be more meaningful than these kind of projects. So
I
that's my
think
2 cents.
No, I think that's a very good point.
Great idea.
Let me just go around everybody again to make sure that everyone's had a chance. Pete, any follow-up on your part on this one?
No, but Dan stimulated a question in my mind. Where the propane tanks are is there going to be access for folks going over there to fill up the tanks, or is there another access point for that?
No, there will be. There's if you look to the left, it's just sand, and
Yeah.
so that is how they get they get to the propane tanks. No, we're not going to be covering. We know people are going to be in front of them, right, filling them. So my feeling was putting covering that. I'm sorry, I didn't draw the rectangle correctly.
Okay.
But
Kind of a
no,
tough angle.
not going to get in the way of that.
So
So
that
people are just going to stomp it down and it's going to die.
right. So that rectangle is actually supposed to be over left a little bit more.
No, it's just shrink it down to the end of the propane tanks. I'm sorry. It should have been, let's say it's about 3/4 of the size it should be from a length point of view, not a width. The width is about correct. The length needs to be shortened. It's not drawn to scale, so.
Okay.
This
Thanks.
it's a tough angle to be looking at too. I think I'm kind of getting what Matt's saying is that it's going to be next to the propane tanks, but there's still going to be access like through this
Absolutely.
kind of
Yeah.
area right here.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to plan something that's going to get, stomped on. So at least I don't think so.
Pete, anything else?
That's it. Thanks.
Okay. Dan, back to you. Any follow-up?
I would just kind of mention something here. I don't know if it has any validity, but there is a walkway out to the beach, correct, on your property?
Correct. Mhm.
And is that like wide, or is it, how wide is it?
It's about 2.5 feet at most.
I mean, it's a narrow path the whole
Yes.
way. There's unfortunately, that doesn't provide any.
It would be, inches on either side, inches on one side at most.
Yeah, never mind. I'm okay.
Just
Okay.
Bob, could I follow up with Dan's
Yeah,
comment?
yeah, absolutely, Mary.
So there is another path on the adjacent property to number 90 Northern Boulevard, immediately to the south. Their access is about 10 feet away. That's to the right of this path.
Mhm.
So there, one option for mitigation would be to utilize a common pathway and restore one of them. They're really close together. One is on the right side of 92 and the other one's on the left side of 90. So I know everybody wants to have their own, access to the beach, but from the aerial images, it looks like the one on number 90 is slightly narrower.
It is.
So it's probably less traveled, I would assume.
Well, it was not, it became, that house sold about a year ago.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I don't think anyone ever walked down the path.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it has gotten wider as the new owners have been there, but I can't speak for them, of course.
Yep.
Thank you, Mary.
Yep.
TJ, any questions?
Not questions, but I do like the idea that Mary brought up about coming up with a kind of an overall bank of that restoration could be done down the road for projects like this. I don't know if you can consolidate, get a homeowner to consolidate a right of way already when they're not coming before the board, but if there's a bank that can be derived that will benefit from projects like this down the road, I think that's a great idea.
And by the way, I would be very happy to contribute to that. This is tough because of the density that I have, but the
But
meaning
like
of
Dan
doing
said,
it,
you're almost being punished because your lot is already vegetated.
yes, but I'd be very happy to contribute to that.
Well, you know what, on some of the public right-of-ways going in, there may be some areas that Sam can identify
Correct.
for a future bank forest, and following up on Mary's suggestion. TJ, anything else?
No, that's it.
Diane, any comments?
No, my only question when Mary brought that up was, are those two paths on private property?
Likely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because if they
Here's-
are, then, you're getting into a lot more involvement
Correct.
there.
It's, I think the public right-of-ways, we should be able to find a few 100 square feet or a few thousand square feet of requirements. Okay, I don't have any further questions. Sam, I'm going to circle back with you. Any follow-up with you?
No, I am all set. I can just throw out there too that, when it ultimately comes down to like a pre-construction site visit, we can, if the commission is comfortable with it, we can approve the proposal. And then, Matt and I and his contractors can, during the pre-construction site visit, make a final field determination of where transplants are going to go, just to make sure that that it's all viable space and everything
Okay.
before it actually gets done.
No, I think that's a good point. All right, Sam, any raised hands from the public at this time?
I do not see any.
Okay. Do we have any remaining questions that members have any requests for additional information or plan amendment or adding additional content? If not, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay. Roll call vote. I screwed up my meeting packet because I printed out all of the data portals. So now we get all these extra pages. Okay, TJ,
Aye.
Pete,
Yes.
Brad. Oh, excuse me, Dan,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Diane, and the chair votes yes.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the order of conditions for 92 Northern Boulevard with the usual conditions and the captions from Natural Heritage.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote. TJ,
Aye.
Pete,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes,
Diane,
Yes,
and the chair votes yes. Okay, thank you, Matt. So
Okay.
Sam, you'll work that out with Matt in the field and his contractor and get us the net square footage of grass we need.
Yes, I can.
Thank you, everyone. This has been very educational. I actually enjoyed it. So
You're probably the first person to ever say
Flattered.
that.
I know,
I
I
don't
know.
I don't know if we've ever heard that before.
Mine.
No, I learned a lot, so I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, continue public hearings. 40 Newman Road, Old Town Hill Reservation for work to construct an observation platform and access trail. Sam, can you provide a project overview and update on this one?
Yes, so we did a site walk on November 22nd, I believe. And we took a look at the site. There were a couple clarifying questions in the field about, which specific trees were going to be removed, where the physical lines were for like the ACEC for the flood zone and things like that, that were covered in the field, just to get a better idea of where those are actually located and where the location of the platform is going to be and the relationship between the two. We did get comments back from DEP last week, which I believe have all been addressed. It was mostly just a request to get the ACEC boundary added onto the plan, which it has been. I spoke with the analyst that reviewed this yesterday, and he pretty much agreed that everything was all covered. The two biggest things that he mentioned to me were that, when you look at the mass mapper overlays for ACEC and the outstanding resource waters, it looks like this project falls into those. The mass mapper overlay is inconsistent with the field delineations. When you look at the field delineations and where they're represented on the site plans, it does show that the project is entirely out of the outstanding resource water boundary. It is still in the ACEC, but the ORW boundary is farther down towards the salt marsh where the actual salt marsh boundary is. And then there was a question from him also to confirm which delineation is shown on the plan, whether it's the BBW delineation or the salt marsh. So the delineation that's shown where the wetland flags are shown on the site plan is the BBW delineation. The salt marsh is farther downslope. There is a little bit of a transitional area, but it's, I don't know, Russ, maybe like 10 feet, maybe.
Yeah, if that.
Yep, so those are the only things that I covered with him, but he did believe that everything else was covered pretty well in all the plans.
Hey, just one question. What did he say on I was surprised to see the 401 water quality certificate.
Right, so that's related to the outstanding resource waters typically.
Okay, the conflict between.
Yes, yeah.
the
Yeah,
actual-
but because in the field delineation, the outstanding resource water boundary is the salt marsh in this particular case. So that because the platform isn't actually going to be in that ORW area, the 401 water quality cert is not necessary.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open this up to questions from the members. Mary recused herself on this at the last meeting, and so just make a notation in the minutes, Sam, that she's continued to recuse herself. Pete, any questions on this project?
No questions, and I thought the site walk was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Dan, any questions on this?
Nothing.
one?
No
Thank you,
question.
Dan. TJ, how about yourself? Any questions on this one?
No questions, but I just think it should be brought out that during the site walk, we did ask about if the platform could be brought back further away from the resource area. And it was determined that that would actually cause more harm to the resource area than leaving it where it is. So just put that in the official minutes.
Thank you, TJ. Diane, any questions?
I
on this
think
project.
Sam actually answered it. I have my plan. And when I was looking at it earlier, it looks like the ACEC limit actually goes directly under where they appear to be building. But then I did see that the ORW is further back. So that was, I think, what you addressed, that it's okay that the ACEC limit goes underneath the deck. DEP is saying that that's not gonna involve any 401 water quality certifications and all that.
Yeah, the 401 water quality cert is related specifically to the outstanding resource water location.
So the platform is within the ACEC.
Partially, yeah, but not within the outstanding resource water boundary.
And it seemed like the answer to any effect or any adverse effect it would have on the ACEC is just that it's a de minimis effect because it's such a large marsh, so they would only be infringing or encroaching a little bit.
Right.
So it wouldn't really have an effect. No questions then.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Sam, recapping your part?
I'm good.
Good, you're good? Okay, any raised hands from the public at this time?
I do not see any.
All right. Okay, do we have any other remaining questions, plan amendments, or additional content that we need in this project? Hearing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing? Roll call vote. TJ?
Motion,
Second,
Excuse me. Motion and second. TJ?
Yes.
Pete?
yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Diane?
yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the order of conditions for 40 Newman Road, Old Town Hill Reservation with the usual conditions?
Motion,
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. TJ?
Yes.
Pete?
yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mary? Excuse me, Mary recused herself. Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, good luck, Russ. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. 7:43, continue public hearing. We have an announcement to make. 140 R Main Street has an assigned field number. Rob must have worked very, very hard getting that across the finish line.
Oh, so many conversations with DEP. They're probably sick of us all at this point.
Okay. Sam, could you give
Not
us
at all. We're
Sam-
pleased to be here.
Hey guys, Sam, could you give us a project overview on this one? Just to recap
Yes.
where we're at.
So this is the access road for the solar field off Main Street. We do have a file number finally. So far there are no DEP comments on this one. But we have Rob and I have gone over the plans pretty extensively. We went over them last week with Martha, the planning director, as well as the fire chief and the fire prevention lieutenant, to discuss some of the kind of outstanding potential issues, which have all since been resolved. There are no longer any issues with the fire department, and I believe everything has more or less been covered with the planning board. They are still in process with the planning board, but believe the planning board is actually waiting to get a final decision from conservation until they move forward, because most of everything is within major jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. There have been a couple revisions since the last time Rob came in. I believe the latest revision on the plan set was November 18th, right? Yep. And I'll let Rob kind of cover the nitty gritty of those, but they are all fairly minor for the most part.
Rob, good evening and congratulations. You've You've accomplished the impossible, it seems, in getting a file number. Rob, why don't you give us where you're at with all your other agencies and what are you looking for tonight?
Great. All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm here tonight with my colleague, John Cronin, and Jared Connell will be joining us shortly, juggling child duties at the moment, but he'll be signing on in just a moment. Last we met was October 4th, I believe. And we had intended to be on within a couple of weeks. We've delayed essentially just to roll all the revisions into a single package to try and make it easiest for everybody. The intention with this is to hopefully present to you a package this evening that you'll find acceptable and that would be grounds for approval. I think on the October 4th meeting, we had three fairly minor items, I think, that were remaining that we wanted, that needed points of clarification. And then the most significant things, which I'm happy to touch on a little bit, as much as you'd like, are the items that Sam just mentioned, which are on the planning board side. We have responded to questions and comments from the fire department and got what we needed, which was fantastic. So there were a number of requirements that were in the original order of conditions and a number of items that would have come with this new proposed project that have all been dealt with respect to access and turning radius. One of which led to a notable revision, which I'll show you in a moment, which was just the length of the roadway. It's not really significant, but it was the roadway has been shortened a bit in choice of providing a better turnaround. And then lastly, the third-party review. And the third-party review had, as I mentioned, a bunch of items in there. And we could go through that if you'd like. Most of them were, I think, were really just honestly really good comments. They were really things that were bringing it from a permit set to a set of construction drawings. So additional items, on cross-section details and contours and side slopes and things of that sort. All important things, but nothing that really changed anything substantively with respect to the actual permit package. So maybe I'll
why don't I hold you there, Rob, and let's open it up some questions, if that's okay with you.
That sounds great. If I could just mention just real quickly, I promise not to take more than 30 seconds, Bob. The three things for the Concom, we had some revisions on some wetlands disturbance to make. We wanted, there was a request for the creations of a wetlands summary plan. So we've got 3 new sheets now with for the plan set that should make the review far easier. And then lastly, the performance bond. And we're prepared to talk about all those items tonight. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Rob. Why don't we open this up? Mary, why don't we start with you? What questions do you have for Rob on this project?
So this is actually more for Sam. Is the 11/8, I think it is, 22 plan, the most current plan? The one that's in our Dropbox? You're muted, yep.
Yep, it was the 11/18.
11/18 back here. I would like to have Rob go through the changes, because I know that there were a number of kind of significant questions that were kind of open-ended at the last meeting about whether or not the causeway was going to be removed and the replication that's going to be provided and whatnot. So I would like to go through those changes.
Okay. So all right, I'm going to present here real briefly, then we can discuss that. Let's see, share screen. And okay, so I think from what I recall from the last meeting, the primary questions were really points of clarification as to how and what and where. And I believe the primary item that we were really left with was really providing a wetlands plan overview, an overview plan that made the presentation of the proposed restoration and road alignment more clear. There really have been essentially no changes, just plan revisions really. So what we have now is three new sheets have been added, which is the wetlands overview plan, a north, a middle, and a south. And what we have on this sheet is the addition of all the wetlands flags, and now you can more clearly see how much where our permanent impact is, as well as the temporary impact in this zone. And then probably the most substantive change was the reduction of both the I think it was 870 square feet of wetland restoration that had prior been in the down near the bridge location. Now we're locating it up in the forested wetland, which makes a bit more sense anyhow, because we're essentially just replacing this 120 square feet of impact with this 240 square feet of wetland creation right in here. And it has the benefit of this is that this is already in an area that's slated for clearing with very little exception. There's a very small area that extends beyond the proposed clearing. So this wetland creation or wetland restoration area in here is now really the primary change that we had discussed, I think, in the last one. So we have that.
Can I just interrupt right there, Rob? So the 120 square feet, that's okay, permanent wetland impact. So your 240 is replication for the permanent impact. And then you have an arrow indicating wetland seed. That must be for some temporary impact, and it doesn't look like there's a square footage there. Oh, yes, it is 470. Okay, got it. Thank you. That's to be restored. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
And there's a whole, and we have there's been no changes to this as of the last submission, but at the prior request we discussed, what was it? There's a lot of additional detail on the revegetation plan. Now that we had actually discussed that in the October 4th meeting, but there was the additional information that you'd requested about wetland seed, shrubs, trees, et cetera. All that information now was presented on October 4th, but we can find that. If you'd like me to elaborate on that again, we can talk about that. That's in the revegetation plan.
I think one of Mary's questions too, Rob, if you could just refresh us on that. We had a discussion whether the causeway was going to be removed or remain. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you were going to let it remain because you weren't going to get any credit for taking it out.
Yeah, I think
where are we at on that? I think.
Yeah, I think where we're at on that is that we're proposing to remove that.
Okay.
I believe that was what I had understood at our last meeting, that the preference was for the wetland fill to be removed. We're not calling it a restoration because the numbers essentially are the same. It's wetland before, it's wetland after. So it's wetland disturbance, but no issue for the wetland. But it would not be loss of wetland or wetland impact. It's just a temporary disturbance. So I think with that in mind, we're still proposing to remove the causeway, the road through the wetland, and that is that 4,500 cubic feet of wetland fill that will be removed. And then the approximately 20 linear feet of bank restoration or bank creation. I guess that's bank restoration that will occur. That you can see is identified right here. So we have 10 feet of restored stream bank between bridge foundation and restored wetland. That's this area down in here. And then the same thing will occur on the southern bank of the stream channel, or of the wetland crossing, I should say.
Mary, any follow-up questions for Rob at this time?
Yes, because, you know, you've got additional temporary alteration of wetland here for the restoration activities you're proposing to remove that causeway. Was there any thought to just removing the culverts themselves and leaving the rest of it in place?
No, that's the first we've heard of it.
Mhm.
No, I mean, in the alternatives analysis, the two alternatives that we looked at were really, I think, just, you know, leaving it in place, and then of course, you know, alternative access. But we did not look at the removal of the culverts. The culverts themselves are, well, I can't remember what they are, but they're approximately 12-inch culverts. So they're not really large. They don't have one of the pieces that the hydraulic study demonstrated was that the really with any significant flow is that the causeway goes underwater immediately. And that's not to do really with a function of the capacity of the culverts. It's actually more just has to do with the downstream controls that are at the Interstate 95, as well as just the grade, the low slope of the wetland. But if you know, when we look at this on an aerial, it's fairly clear that this is what we have as a low line, a very fairly flat valley. That in combination with the interstate is really what's causing that. So no, there was no thought of just removing the culvert, because it really wouldn't alter the hydraulics at all. The only point was, are we going to provide a restored wetland by removing wetland fill? And the assumption, and I think this was what I understood our conversation last time to read, was that the removal of wetland fill is a net plus, and something that would be viewed generally as a positive thing. And the issue of whether or not how it's classified, whether it's restored or otherwise, was sort of separate from the issue of whether or not we're removing wetland fill.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mary? I'll circle back again.
Yeah, I had some questions about the planting plan. So I don't know, you want to go through just the big picture stuff and get down to this nitty gritty stuff?
You know what,
later?
Mary? Why don't I do this? Why don't I go through everyone once?
Yep.
And then I'll circle back and we'll get to the fine point. How's
Sounds
that?
good. Thank you.
Okay. Pete, any questions for Rob on this one?
Hey, Rob, glad you're
But
here. I'm going to pick up somewhere where Mary just left off. We're looking at about 103 trees that are 6-inch diameter and greater, and about 56 that are 12-inch or diameter greater. And we're going to be replacing 45 shrubs and 11 trees. Do I have that right?
I think so. Let me go back to that. Let's see, where is the revegetation plan? That is 11 and 12.
Awful big set of plans you got there, Rob.
Yeah, it's growing. It is growing. So I believe, where are those? 11 and 12. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Lay down area restoration. Here we go. So we have 3,375 square feet of lay down restoration area. Which amounts to about 11 trees and 45 shrubs to be replanted. And at minimum, the thought is because this is actually going to be a temporary clearing, that we will we will actually just reuse, because we have a road widening, we will reuse and probably replant excessively in here, because there will be more than enough vegetation for us to use, and then some, with all the road widening here.
So, yeah, no, I'm just doing the math thing.
So Pete, your specific question is how many trees are being removed at what caliper?
Yeah, so 103 are coming down,
Okay.
that are greater than 6 and greater than 12 inch of 56. So I was just trying to figure out the math of replacing 11 trees and 45 shrubs.
Yeah. Well, the 11 trees and 45 shrubs are for the laydown area restoration. It's not the restoration of the clearing area. So the clearing area is itself not being restored. That area is that's still within the roadway. I mean, not within the roadway. The area will be loamed and seeded, but that's on the 3-to-1 side slope of the roadways. So no, there's no additional trees or shrubs that are being proposed for restoration there. What we are expecting, Pete, is that similar to the first approval, that there will be a fee for the trees that are cleared for this.
So basically a tree fund.
Yeah, a tree fund, exactly. And we do have a count for, and that's on the tree clearing plan. Is that what you were referring to? I think I might have misunderstood you.
That was. So
Okay,
we're good.
all right, yes,
Yep.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying there. Yeah, so that's a tree count of the actual tree diameter and all that. So there would be a tree fund established. We have not had that conversation yet at the planning board, but I'm expecting to have that one again. And that whatever the going rate is, we would then assign a fee for that.
And I appreciate the restoration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Pete, anything else?
That's it. Thanks for now.
Okay, Dan, any questions for Rob?
No questions right now.
Okay, thank you, Dan. TJ, any questions for Rob?
Rob, the upland that was talked about to restore to a wetland area, is that going to stay as an upland area, or is it going to be replicated?
I'm sorry, TJ, would you mind repeating that?
There was a little section, it's not on this
Yeah, let me go
right
back to
here,
that.
but there was a section of upland area that was good upland area that was dedicated to be restored as a wetland area.
Yeah.
But there was
is this what we're-
conversation about leaving it as an upland. What?
Is this the area you're referring to right in here?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So no, that will be, that's not going to be upland habitat. That would be the wetland restoration, or sorry, wetland creation. That would be
Okay.
that is in exchange for the 120 square feet of permanent wetland impact, which you see right below that.
Yeah, and there was no other area to reconstruct a wetland and leave that as upland?
No, we just the area that we this goes back to our October 4th conversation. If we're unfortunately, if there's no credit given for the causeway, we don't really have a good alternative beyond restoring an area that would be upland otherwise. And the choice to do this here seemed like a better one than the other location, because this is in an area that's already going to be disturbed for road widening. You may recall from the October 4 conversation, I was pleading a little bit to not do it in the location that we had that was immediately next to the bridge, and the reason simply being that that's good habitat there. Good upland habitat. There's high bush blueberry amongst other things. This to me, while it's impact to uplands, I get it. it represents a good alternative.
So TJ, I think your question was, we're not doing anything in the upland area for restoration down by the bridge. And this is the final area where we're doing restoration.
Correct.
So
That's,
that's what you were getting to, right?
Yep.
Okay.
no further questions, Bob.
All right. Thank you, TJ. Diane, any questions for Rob?
Maybe it's sort of procedurally, I guess. If DEP says that they filed the NOI on December 1st and there's no comments yet, are we even allowed, do we have to give them a certain amount of time to comment before we can even vote?
That's
No,
a good question.
They've issued the file number, Diane, so
We
they-
can-
we can take a vote because the file number's been issued. It might, the applicant may request to keep it open so that if there are comments, they have an opportunity to address them rather than risk an intervention, which we've seen before.
That was my question. So if we vote and then DEP comes out with comments, because if they're saying they are just starting to look at this supposedly, I can't imagine they won't have any comments.
I'm not sure about that, Diane.
Okay.
I think that it's in error. They received it on July 12th. And the portal, which says December 1st is in error. And so they've, it's off by 5 months. It was actually Samantha that noted that and had requested to DES to make that correction. And I followed up with that same piece again today and have not heard back. But that doesn't really change the point of your comment, which is if we receive comments after the fact and there's some corrections that need to be made, we would, if they're substantive, we would need to return back to the board and deal with that. I think our preference, because that possibility exists also with the Corps of Engineers, and that possibility exists with the Planning Board. I mean, there's opportunities for revisiting this.
You
I
shouldn't
shouldn't say
have,
opportunities. There's the opportunity for revisiting this regardless, I think on a lot of fronts. So our choice would be, our preference would be to move forward tonight and revisit this if necessary, if later on.
Yeah, Mary, I'm going to get right back to you. Diane, anything else for Rob before I circle back to Mary?
No, I'm sure Mary's going to speak to it. So no.
Okay, Mary.
just
you're
thanks.
up.
No, I just wanted to make sure that DEP has this updated plan and they're not relying on the July plan. Because
Yes.
and they would definitely, okay, just make sure that they're reviewing the updated plan.
Yeah.
And I don't, you'd mentioned Army Corps and I don't see any trigger for them since you're under 5,000 square feet. But, you shouldn't need to file with them.
That's what I'm thinking as well, but we plan to confirm that.
Yep, just a self-verification notification
Yeah.
is all you need. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks.
Okay, all
Thank
set,
you.
Mary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Pete, any follow-up questions for Rob?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, Dan, any follow-up questions?
All set.
All right, TJ.
All
Any-
set.
Okay, Diane,
All set.
I have no questions. Sam, any words of wisdom for Rob before we see if there's any public?
I am all set. The only thing that I did want to make sure that we cover is the language in the special conditions for the performance bond. I just want to make sure that before we vote on anything, that is in there correctly.
Okay. So Rob,
And
thank
I can bring that draft up at some point.
Okay, yep. So Rob, we got a copy of performance bond. It was sent over to town council. And what town council said that we could do, if the board decides to move forward, is performance bond acceptance subject to town council review under special conditions of the OOC.
Perfect.
Okay, and that was pretty much it. And it's clear cut, but that where they just are it today. That's where we were at on that.
Okay.
Okay, Sam, anything else on that?
Nope, I am all set.
Okay, do we have any raised hands from the public at this time?
I do not see, we don't really have any members of the public anymore. We do have Jared Connell is here now, but that's it.
Okay. All right, do we have any, does the commission have any other matters, comments, plan amendments, or additional content that they request?
No,
Hearing none. Is there a motion? Well, I guess anything else before we move on to moving to close the public hearing? Okay, last chance. All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay, roll call vote. TJ,
Aye.
Pete,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes.
Diane,
yes,
and the chair votes yes. Okay. What's our pleasure, team? Do we have a motion to approve the order of conditions for 140R Main Street with the usual conditions and the added verbiage on the performance bond acceptance by town council?
I do have some questions about the special conditions.
Okay.
This is a project that we don't see very often, which has very direct impacts to wetlands and potential for adverse impacts to wetlands if not done correctly. Typically, in my experience, projects like this require an environmental monitor beyond the agent, because you need to have somebody on site responsible for it, and that understands wetland restoration activities. So I would propose that the special conditions include requirement that activities that are within the wetlands be directly supervised by a wetland scientist whose name and qualifications are provided for approval by the agent, and that this person or persons they be on site during wetland restoration activities, and that the reporting be provided on a weekly basis during those activities. That's something that is at the expense of the applicant, obviously, but they would report directly to the commission. This is often different towns do it differently. Some provide the funds up front and pay a consultant directly. I think in this case, the applicant can hire their own consultant, and maybe Rob was planning on overseeing the project anyway, in which case that would be great. But I do think it needs more than what Sam is able to provide in terms of oversight.
Any comments on that, Rob?
Yeah, so yes, there was, we were planning on construction engineering oversight for sort of all the critical elements. And I think it would make sense either for myself or somebody else to be present during those periods of time. We're expecting that the actual wetland impacts will probably exist for, maybe intensely for about a week during the actual removal, and then probably about a couple of weeks during the initial installation of the turbidity curtains and all of these other elements. So I guess I'm just thinking my way through this. Do you think that the engineering construction supervision that I would be providing as a matter of routine would be sufficient, as long as it was during the wetland components? I was on site to review those pieces. So I guess my point being that there's not daily engineering inspections for all elements of this project, but the daily check-in during work within the wetlands is something that I can imagine could happen as well. And if I couldn't, that we would then have somebody, as you'd suggested, with alternative with their qualifications.
Mary, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we need to craft it in a way that we're comfortable with, that there's enough reporting, and that there's some kind of, more up-to-date construction sequence provided prior to start of work, with start dates and estimations for different activities and things, so that Sam will know when to view the site, and we can cross-reference that to what our special conditions say this person should visit the site. But I think we need a little time to draft that special condition. So,
Okay. You know what, Rob, I'm sorry, I forget the gentleman's name sitting to your.
Yeah,
your
John.
left. John, sorry about that, John. John, you had a question you wanted to offer? A comment?
No, I just suggested, I think the comment is a good one. And I suggested to Rob, as in, could you draft an oversight management plan that would give some specifics in terms of times and durations and what would be done and substitutions? So there's something in writing in four corners that we could submit administratively to the satisfaction of the commission. That way that's not guesswork, and maybe Mary's thought was you folks do it and we review it. And I guess we don't care who the author is, but where Rob will be doing most of the work, I think in the construction phase, it may make more sense for him to put a proposal together with specifics for you, so that you know what he's planning on doing.
So how would we handle the mechanics of that?
so I think that I can share some special conditions that I've worked with other projects that are relevant, and Sam can use that information to craft the draft. We can circulate a draft order of conditions to make sure that works with the applicant, and then approve it at our next meeting. We've closed the hearing. We've got 21 days. I don't know how that works with our schedule. We can, if the applicant is amenable to, an extension of the 21-day time period from when we close the hearing to when we issue the order of conditions. Or if we have a meeting on the 20th, then that resolves that question. But I think we need to draft that and maybe a handful of others that might be applicable, so that we have that base covered.
So my question is, do you think we can accomplish this before the 20th of December?
Yes.
Certainly done a lot more in a lot less time.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
Rob, does that work for your team? We don't have a meeting scheduled for December 20th. We had actually canceled it, but we have another matter that may likely come up with more of an emergency on a septic system. But I think we've kicked this can around for a while. That
I think this makes a lot of sense.
The only comment I would have is that if we wrap everything else up and have a list to make sure, I mean, the preference, of course, from the applicant, where there's so many things that are stacked on top of this, that would be a preference and just an ask that it gets approved subject to satisfaction of that conditions within the 21-day period or whatever it is, so that at least we know there's no other outliers, that we come back on the 20th and have other things to deal with. So that would be the preference, but if you can't do that, certainly we'll do our best to accommodate the 20th.
Mary, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the hearing's closed, so we can't accept new information. We can't ask for new information. So the only thing we can do is craft conditions for the work that you're proposing. And so I think that because of the type of project this is and how much is involved, it might be worthwhile to circulate it to you as a draft, so that if there's anything in there that we might reconsider that doesn't work for you logistically,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
we can maybe accommodate that, and then approve the full special conditions at our next meeting. So it wouldn't be, that's all it would be. You don't have to even have to be there. It'd just be a matter of formality of administratively
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
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 I think that would work great. Thank you for the offer.
So I guess so. Rob, our next scheduled meeting is January 3rd. We're toying with having a special meeting on December 20th. Is it critical one way? I shouldn't even ask that. If it was the January 3rd meeting, would that be overly burdensome to the applicant?
We can't do that. We can't, now that the hearing has been officially closed and that's been voted on and approved,
Oh, okay, we got the
we
21
have
days.
to
Yeah.
issue an order of conditions within 21 days.
Okay, so we'll just schedule a meeting for December 20th for
Yeah.
final review of this.
I mean,
matter.
this should be pretty quick, and
Yeah,
if
yeah, no,
the,
absolutely.
if the other one should be quick too, if it's all
Okay,
set,
yeah.
so.
Okay, so Mary, we'll just schedule this for 12:20. Does that work for you?
That's great.
Okay.
Sorry to have you have to schedule a meeting for the 20th.
No, look,
No,
you know what?
It's already on the books.
Yeah, we're trying to accommodate somebody else, so. All right, any other questions before we wrap up on 140 Main Street for the evening? All right.
Thanks for your hard work on that, you guys.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rob.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Appreciate the all the thought and effort that went into this. It made it a much better project. So you have a great night.
Okay, thank you.
Joe.
All right, administration, staff reports and updates. Sam? Any burning bushes anywhere we have to address?
I don't really have anything too crazy. We certainly don't have to hold a full discussion on it right now. It's almost 8:30, but there are a couple new draft versions of meeting schedules for 2023. The new ones that I posted, or the new ones that I put in the Dropbox for you, were specifically from July through December 2023 and included were the new dates reflecting Monday meetings. And there's two different schedules. There's one schedule that's on a 3-week rotation and one schedule that is on a alternating schedule of 2 meetings and 1 meeting per month. If anybody, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at those, but we certainly, if we're not going to be making any decisions on that until for at least another couple months, we don't have to have discussion on that, but they are in there.
Okay, thank
But
you.
other than that, I have nothing thrilling happening.
Okay, well, thank you, Sam. So, Tim, I think the only thing is we'll have 140R on the 12:20 meeting and potentially 140 Cottage Road on this septic.
71 Cottage,
Oh, is it 71?
71, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll put both of those on, and I'm gonna give Steve a call tomorrow about that and just chat with him about it and let him know that, if it gets down to the 20th and we still don't have anything to take final action, I mean, it's a septic replacement. It's not anything too crazy. It's not like a wild, huge project. It should be a one and done hearing anyways. So if he submits that to DEP and we don't have a file number by the 20th, I'll just see if they would be comfortable with letting us continue it without actually opening it, but continuing the hearing. And then we'll just have 140 on 140 Main.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bar there is making sure the Board of Health is signed off on it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go around the horn one more time. Mary, any other final comments?
No, thank you.
Okay. Pete, how about yourself? Dan,
Nothing.
TJ?
Yeah, just one quick, we haven't had an update on the sewer releases or anything with the other towns. I know you've been busy and you probably don't have anything else to update us on, but I just, maybe we can put that on after the holidays as a weekly, or a regular update and see what's going on, because these things that are long-term sometimes can fall by the wayside unless you address them regularly and kind of bring it to the forefront a little bit. I just think it's very important, and we should get some updates on it and see what we can do.
Well, you know what we'll do, TJ? Why don't we just, under administration, under number 2, we have A, discussion, and B is going to be CSO releases. So we'll just leave it there, and we get something to report, but we'll just leave it there as a permanent reminder for the
Sounds
next
good.
few months. Okay. All right, do we have a
Dan.
motion?
Dan's
Dan's got his hand up.
Oh, Dan, go ahead. Dan.
Just a quick question, for Sam mostly. Is there anything you know about the sign at Great Meadow? It's not there anymore, so I wondered if it could have used some work. Rough shape,
Oh, the sign at the entrance?
yes.
I haven't heard anything about that. I haven't been down there in a few days. So do you know when it came down?
Well, I don't even know. I didn't even look to see if it was on the ground, but, you know, it's just a question if you could, you know, maybe look into it.
Yeah.
I think it would definitely be nice to have a restored sign. Or better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take a ride down there tomorrow and see if it's maybe on the ground somewhere. It may have just, we had some pretty wild wind over the last couple weeks, so I don't know if it
Yeah.
might have just
Yeah.
gotten knocked off.
Thanks.
All right, team, we get 4 minutes, but we have to wrap this up completely. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Mary,
Yes.
Pete, Dan,
Yes.
DJ,
Yes,
Diane, and
Yes.
chair votes yes. Good night, everyone.
good night.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.